All right, welcome everyone to the 2020 Champ Car Endurance Series Annual Board of Directors meeting. I'm Paul Veltum, and we're going to go ahead and get things started here. I'll hand things over to the board. Now, I'm having a little trouble unmuting your mic there, Mr. Chiswick. There we go.
You see, I'm playing mute. Let's see, with you over here on a camera screen.
All right, I'll douse my mic and hand it over to you, sir.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Champ Car Endurance Series 2020 annual board meeting. This was something that was scheduled to be done at Watkins Glen back in May. Everybody is fully aware at this point that 2020 has not unfolded like anybody could have imagined or would have desired. So after it was clear that we were not going to be able to get together as a group at a track and have a meeting in person, this was put together as the only remaining alternative. So tonight I'm joined by your other board members, Rich Sonato, Tiffany Alexander, Bruce Mills, Tyler Petison, Jerry Enger, and Doc Waldrop. Later on, Bill will take your questions and screen through them and read them to us. So since some of us are on the East Coast and we have a race this weekend, we will get started. 2019 seems so long ago. It's August now, but 2019 was a really good year for the club. We saw a lot of new teams at our races. Doc Waldrop tracks those after every event. He can list for us how many new teams were there, first-time builds, first-time drivers with us. We saw good growth there. We continued our average car counts at races, set a couple of records last year, like at Pittsburgh, we were pleased with that growth. Obviously, this report later on this year's been a different case, but we had good finances out of that, and Jerry Enger will go over their finances from last year as well. We went to new shows. We'll just get in all the details because last year was really good. I'm trying to think about last year. It's so long ago, and it was such a good year compared to this year, right? So anyway. I'm going to also try to keep this short. So, Jerry, you want to get into our 2019 financials highlights?
Okay, sure. Let me fast forward quite a ways here.
Sorry, just
there we go.
Some of us are on battery.
No, that's okay. Actually, we had a pretty good year last year. We made money as an organization, and we did that despite the fact that we spent a lot of money. Hold on. We did that despite the fact that we spent a lot of money going to shows and doing things that we hadn't previously done. We ran a whole bunch of West Coast races that we lost money at, but we could afford to do that. We went to Indy for the first time, and that was a really expensive track to go to. And because it was our first time there, we sent everybody but the kitchen sink in. So we spent a lot of money to make sure that event went correctly. We went to SEMA. We went to the Petit Le Mans shows, and I believe, right? Isn't that correct? Petit Le Mans? Yeah. And, those are luxuries that this year we really couldn't afford to do. So we didn't do them this year. But last year we did do them. So despite the fact that revenues were up quite a bit, costs were up even more. And so we didn't make as much money as we did the year before. We are technically a nonprofit entity. So making money really isn't the first thing we are trying to do. But obviously, it would have been nice to be a little bit more in the black than we were, but we did it. We still had a great year. I don't know about the car counts and all that. I'll let Doc handle that later. But let me get my magnifying glass out here because this stuff's pretty small. Anyway, revenues were up and expenses were up. Part of that's due to Indy. Indy costs a small fortune to rent, and obviously we charge us a lot more money to actually go and drive there. So that kind of had the effect of increasing both sides of the P&L, both the balance sheet and the income statement. We do wind up at the end of the year with no debt except for the old debt that we already had to the series founder, John Condren, and that comes down every year. Matter of fact, I believe with the next payment we make, that total debt will be under $100,000. So we've made some pretty good progress on that. I know when I was elected or nominated to the board or put on the board by Mike originally, that number was almost 200,000. Might even been more than 200,000. So that obligation is going away. But the things that really went up last year were travel. Let me see, I wrote them down. You can see track rental. That's largely Indy. It'll be even higher this year because not only did we rent Indy this year, we also rented Coda this year. So that number is probably going to go up this year. Labor and staff went up quite a bit, $76,000. That's mostly due to probably overstaffing in some situations to make sure we pull events off correctly. Travel expenses followed the labor, workers, and staff, so that also was pretty high. And those are things that we actually talked about at the end of the year last year, and we really made a concerted effort to bring those numbers down going into this year. Event supplies, hospitality is up a little bit, and then advertising was up about 35 grand, and that reflects the trade shows that we went to. Those things will go away. I think people are probably more interested in what's happening this year than they are with what happened last year. Last year's water under the bridge now, and we did okay. I wish we'd have made more, like I said, but we're still in the black and we still have no debt. Well, right now, roll forward to COVID-19 through August, and we're actually in the same boat, relatively in the same boat that we were a year ago. Money's a little bit tighter, but to counteract that, we didn't go to these shows. We got the PPP loan, which will be completely forgiven. Mike did a great job of taking care of that. Our bank couldn't do it, so I think you did it through PayPal, didn't you, Mike?
Correct.
Yeah, so that was really good. That's $60,000 that's sitting on our balance sheet right now as a liability, but it will be completely forgiven because we didn't reduce our staff during the virus. So that'll be gone. And we're probably kind of treading water right now with that PPP loan. Mike and I are going to sit down next week and go through everything and see what the future looks like. In fact, it might be a good idea, Mike, for us to move, at least internally, to an accrual-based accounting system instead of cash. Gives you a better idea of what you have out there for deposits and prepaid money in and this sort of thing. And we're gonna have to. You and I are gonna have to do that anyway. When we look at this next week, we're gonna have to figure that out where we're really at. But we're not in bad shape right now, and you'd think we might be. But with the PPP loan and the reduction of some of these expenses, we're actually going to come out okay. It looks like. We just have to be careful not to take on money losers right now. So we had to cancel some West Coast races that we would like to have done, that we're not going to sell out. Even Laguna, which usually sells out or is close, was on a Monday and Tuesday this year. That made it difficult to get people to sign up for it. For example, I couldn't go on a Monday, Tuesday, and I've gone to Laguna every year for the last 5 years. So, but this year I couldn't do it during the week. So a lot of people are like that. Obviously, the coronavirus affected everybody. So revenues are going to be down. The biggest problem we have right now, and it's not really a gigantic issue, but it's just that people can't go to races. They can't travel because of shutdowns or lockdowns, and they're canceling a lot of race fees. We've got to pay the tracks. We've got to go to the race. And then, the week before the race, we find out we're going to have, 15 cancellations. We're trying to do right by everybody and get everybody money back or roll their deposits to another race. But that is a concern that's probably going to follow us until there's a vaccine, and hopefully that'll happen sometime later this year. So we'll see. I don't know what else to do from here on the financials, except that the other thing we did last year too is that we did buy a lot of capital equipment. That doesn't affect the P&L, but it does affect cash flow. We bought the new trucks. We got a whole bunch of new timing and scoring equipment. The good news is we're set up now, I believe, right, Mike? We're good to go for the next 5 years.
All of our assets are in good shape.
Yeah, we're in great shape. We've got assets, which is really nice. And once you've paid for them, you can just enjoy them, and they just, just the depreciation moving forward on the P&L, but the cash flow isn't adversely affected. So if we were in this boat and hadn't bought all that equipment, it'd be a lot worse looking than it is now, because we're set. We don't have to go out and buy new timing and scoring equipment. We don't have to go out and buy trucks to get things to the track. So, we did set ourselves up while the money was rolling good. I believe Tyler has done a great job with sponsorship, and we still have another full year, I believe, with the tire rack. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We got one more year, and then an option to renew for the next 2 years. So.
Okay, and they may not renew it based on what's going on, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, hopefully the economy comes roaring back, and hopefully the racers come roaring back at the same time, and the tire rack does well in the process. So we'll see. So that's still in place. That'll really help us. We did some emergency cash flow analysis back in third quarter, about a year ago, matter of fact, based on what could happen, which is kind of funny because now what could happen has pretty much happened. And, so we already had the idea that we'd have to cut shows and what would be next. And if things get real bad, we may have to cut the broadcast. But right now, we aren't planning to do that. We will have to take a look at that in the coming weeks and see if that's something we want to visit later, Mike. But for now, it's all systems go, and let's just hope that the racers keep coming out, and we'll go from there. So,
I heard that Bill Strong was offering to volunteer and work for free.
Oh, that'd be great. Thanks, Bill. So I don't know what else to say. I don't know if the board has more questions or if the people are posting questions. I can't see questions right now. So.
No, I think that you covered last year's financials and into this year and how the shutdowns affect us good. So
Okay.
one of the next thing I want to mention was briefly that this year was a new championship format that you're qualifying under a new set of rules this year that would take place in 2021 when we were to go to Road America in spring. Believe, if I remember correctly, we said 5 races, and of course, like this weekend at Gingerman, that's 2 races. So it's not 5 separate weekends, but 5 races. But obviously, we lost a lot of races this year. Some people had asked some questions about, well, do we still have to have 5 races when we've had some canceled? And we're just going to say that we're going to have some flexibility on that. We're not going to come out and rewrite the rule book and say, no, we're going to change it to a different number. But you're in an area where you had 1 or 2 tracks near you and they got canceled. Obviously, we'll work with you on that. We want to be inclusive of get people out there and compete for the championship and not to throw you under the bus just because the world shut down this year. So just if that's a concern of yours, you can email us and we'll deal with it on a case-by-case basis. One of the new things that we have done is those of you are aware that we started a knowledge database back at January 1st. And this was to address the wave of questions that would come by email, and there was no tracking to that per se. So a lot of us internally didn't know what the other person was saying, and people were getting a correct answer, but other people in the club didn't get an answer. And so the concept of a knowledge database was posted. For being put together in the first year, I believe it's done well. It's got a huge amount of information in it. There has been some concern as to, is the knowledge database an alternate rulebook, a different rulebook, an up-to-date rulebook? And what about some things in it that seem to be repetitive or sort of contradictive or not clear? To address that, we've ended up creating another position to help with that answers the board. And to go over that today, Tyler Pedersen is going to inform everybody about what that means.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So this spring, Tiffany and I kind of looked at things, and I think Bill focused on the media stuff, and he was also trying to help with the rule book and do all this stuff. So we had a member come to us and say, I just want to help out, and I want to do what I can for the club. So the new technical writer that we brought on, and which has been approved by the board, and really what the technical writer is going to do is update the knowledge base, draft the revisions of the BCCCR instructed by the TAC, the CEO, and National Tech. And everything that the tech writer does will need to be approved by the board. So we have a lot of good ideas, but sometimes we don't know how to write those. And we have a lot of members who are very good at technical writing and doing a lot of technical items. So our new technical writer is Chris Huggins, and he has been working hard, as I know, on the knowledge base right now, and he's going to be helping us format the new rule book that's going to come out here in a couple weeks. But it's a 100% voluntary position. Chris came to us and said, hey, I just want to help the club out. Here's what I can bring. So we all got together and approved the tech writer position. So that's one thing less off of Bill's plate. He can focus on the media. We have someone who can focus on tech writing, and I think it's a great move for this series to be able to bring someone in like Chris and use his knowledge to make rules and look at the rule book. So with that, I think what we're going to do here is we're just going to go over the approved petitions. There was 110 petitions. I mean, there was a lot of petitions. And so really what we're going to do is we wanted to go over the yes petitions that we we approved as a board. Went over a couple weeks. We had a lot of late meetings. The big thing that I wanted to go over that we saw in the petitions is the 2 times rule. So there's a lot of petitions about 2 times rule. There's a lot of petitions on what we're going to do with 2 times. So as a board, we felt that we are going to go ahead and with that 2 times item, we're going to go ahead and put it in the fixed points list. So essentially, there will be no more 2 times rule going into next year. There's just going to be, everything's going to be in the fixed points list. We worked with the TAC. The TAC really debated and came up with a great list, and you'll see those in the 2021 rules under your fixed points list versus having to do 2 times. We feel like this is a lot easier to complete. It's easier that, hey, here's what you can and cannot do. So we spent a lot of time going through those and running the models and came out with a great points breakdown. And I don't really think anything's changing from what has been this year. It's just a new format of what we're doing. So that is the first kind of yes petition that I want to go over. It's a major change for this series. It's always been 2 times rule since it started. We're now putting that in the fixed points list and really looking forward to how that changes kind of the ease of tech and items like that. So I'm not sure who wants to go over the next yes petition.
Well, let me add something on that. One of the reasons for y'all wonder why we got rid of the 2 times list is because as we add newer cars in, and there's a lot of Porsches and that sort of thing in, 2 times on a Porsche is dramatically different than on an '89 Civic. So
True.
It didn't make any sense anymore to make 2 times. That it was an unfair advantage based on whatever car you selected. So that was one of the reasons we wanted to get away from it. Okay. Sorry, guys.
All right. Well, Polly's pulling up some of these pages in a row. We're looking at the same thing everybody else is looking at. 2 yeses on the first page. One was a syntax error that we're going to correct in there. So there's a lot of those that we voted yes on. That there was typos, grammatical errors, syntax, whatever, that were not meant to be there. And so just yes, we all agreed easily, quickly, unanimously. Just clean that stuff up. And that's, as Tyler mentioned, that's something that Chris Huggins is going to work on doing. Also, someone had asked the question about TCUs, transmission control units. We allow engine control units upgrades for free, and they said, well, what about transmission ones? And we all said that's fine. It's computers. We can't check it, and you're not going to change the world with it. So that's why we went ahead and did that one.
Hey, Mike, do you want to? So the green is the no petitions, and the light blue is the yes petitions. Just an FYI, so people can at home can follow along.
Very good point. Yes. Not that I want to go through and read all of them, but
hey, this is Bill, guys. Real quick, folks listening, you can download your own version of this PDF. Go to ChampCar.org. Scroll down, you'll see the link to this presentation, and the link to the PDF is there, and you can go ahead and download it. Sorry.
You'll find it. There wasn't many yeses in here. As Tyler had mentioned, there really wasn't much the way it changes. There's plenty of things that we debated, and after we run through these yeses, we want to be able to take your questions on. If you had a petition or you saw a petition and you want to know why it didn't pass, we can address it directly rather than going through these line by line at 101 of them and take forever. So most of the yeses were fairly simple clarifications and cleanups of stuff. So like the ECU is being removed from the swap sheet. Well, ECUs are free; they're open. So why would we require you to list, how much you paid for your ECU and your swap? And so that's why we voted to say just drop the ECU from the swap sheet entirely, kind of clean up the paperwork for that. Now it looks like. So who wants to go over? Looks like clarifying the roll cages.
Yeah, it's clarified 2 liters is more than half a gallon, and
Yeah,
update
so
roll
essentially
cage rules.
those were just, I think in the rules on the 2 liters is more than half a gallon. So we've clarified that to a point. I think what Chris brought up, that 2 liters is more than half a gallon. So that's a really just a grammatical error there, that it's going to be half gallon. So we've got that in liters now. And then also last year we said that we approved that, hey, pedal box and footwell boxes bracing can be approved, can be done for free. you just can't go forward from the firewall more than two bars. Over 2 bars is free. So we had the pictures there. We wanted to clarify that. So that's going to be updated as well, that you can only have 2 forward bars from the firewall. You can have a footwell for free. You just can't extend into the firewall anymore.
So on this page, items 49, 50, 51, these are examples that deal with the 2 times rule. And so while the petition as written has been disapproved, the overall issue has been dealt with, as Tyler was mentioning, by changing the overall approach and basically eliminating the 2 times rule. So again, it's disapproved, but the issue has been dealt with by the TAC, and it'll be reflected in the new rules.
That's something that we all as a group do every year. There may be a number of petitions that they're not approved, but they bring up an idea that get all of us talking, and we can make a change like this year's 2X change that addresses all the ones we said no to, because we're not going to say yes to something because if it's not spelled out right and then we don't do it that way, then it wasn't really a yes. So it's just because this is no doesn't mean that we didn't appreciate the idea or didn't bring change to the club. So it's just something everybody should keep in mind. Jerry, were you involved in the radiator discussion heavily?
I was, and it had nothing to do with Miatas. The radiators that can be, you can't, as Doc would say, can't swing a dead cat without hitting a Miata. But there are a lot of older cars out there where you can't even get an OEM radiator anymore. But you could get a replacement on Craigslist for $100, and in the OEM one might have cost you $400, $500 in some cases. So the idea being, we're not approving a triple core radiator. It's not, it's not a full-blown racing radiator. It's free, but if you can find a radiator cheaper than a stock one based on any of the leading parts stores, we're not talking about dealers. If you go to Advanced Auto or O'Reilly, any of these parts stores, and you can get and you can get pricing on a radiator, but you can get a cheaper one online. As long as it's not like a triple core racing radiator, then it's fine to do that, and you won't get charged for it anymore. It's hard. We're racing a lot of old cars, and we're letting new cars in. But let's face it, when you go to a race, the average age on a race car in our series right now is almost 30 years. So a lot of parts are getting harder and harder to find. So that's why we went that direction. It was kind of split by the constituents or members, 22 in favor, 16 against. But we understood the logic of it, and we're trying to keep racing cheap and affordable for all of our members. So that's why we went that direction. Okay.
A couple more clarifications. You can see who writes these petitions too. So, in the case of automatic transmissions, Chris Huggins noted that wanted what was said in the VPI list to also be listed in the rule book. So it's not a change to anything. It's just putting a rule in the BCCR where it should be. It's a clarification. And that also comes with the clarification that we get a question sometimes on tech, or at the tech desk, or they send an email, they ask us to track, and they want to get a 75-point deduction because they've got the automatic dual clutch gearbox. Volkswagens run those boxes and things. And so the clarification is no. An automatic is fluid controlled. They've got a hydraulic pump that moves ATF and engages clutches. There's a torque converter in there. That's what's going to be clarified in the VCCR, and those dual clutch boxes are just computer-controlled manual gearboxes. And so another clarification that Chris Huggins brought up to make things a little simpler and easier for everybody to understand. All right. Next one. Brake lines and flywheels, clutches. Somebody's laughing.
Can we just point out we finally approved a Troy petition?
Apparently so. And there was a lot of talk on the forum about this, but the biggest problem we have with this is making a rule that we can't enforce. I mean, if you're going to check a flywheel in my Miata with the swap, it's going to take you a couple hours to get the transmission out. There's no way to look in to see it. So how do you enforce the rule? Almost everybody's gone that direction anyway. I think it's hard to believe there's a lot of stock stuff going on in our race cars. So that was a rule that was kind of sort of on the fly, implemented by tech, and Troy Trulio wrote a petition and we actually approved it. So congratulations, Troy, you actually got one.
Good job, Troy. That was like the 78th one you wrote.
It's got to happen sometime.
Yes. Brake lines, braided brake lines are free. I think that's been allowed, but it's never been in writing. So now that's officially going to be in the BCCR. Oh, also caliper adapter plates. Those of you who swap calipers and you get a buddy on a water jet or a laser or something, even a hacksaw, and you cut up some metal plates to adapt your different calipers to your spindles, Tech is not charging any points for that metal adapter plate. Boy, 101 petitions is a lot. All right. Differential. Who wants to talk about the differential clarification?
I need to pull that one up.
I think one before that is number 76, swap header revision. There's been a lot of hand wringing over, especially over the Miata swaps that were using a Polaris header. And I think the way we changed it is that you can use a header, but it has to come from a motor on the VPI list. It can't be an aftermarket header that never came on any car. So those of us that did have Polaris headers had to switch over to something else, and I think that just makes all the headers being treated the same. There was a lot of animosity over, if you do a swap, are you putting a racing header in? Well, now that can't be the case because it's going to be a stock header off something. So that'll clear that up, and that'll take that, real or imagined advantage away from the cars that were swapping their header with the motor swap. I just want to make sure that everybody was aware of that one. Sorry.
We should probably also mention headlights. TAC is looking into very heavily. We're going to do something or try to figure out something to do better on headlights. We just don't have the answers yet.
We don't want to make rules that we can't enforce.
Yeah.
So that's the key.
So there's a lot of no's about headlights there, but it's not because we're ignoring them.
Trying to figure out a good way to police that.
You're blinded.
ABS. There's been a lot of questions about that. TAC reviewed it. Tech got involved. Board talked about it a lot. Ultimately, resolved to not allow aftermarket ABS systems, but we are going to approve, upgrading your car to ABS systems that are on the VPI list for points, and that will be listed in the section 4 of the BCCR. So if that's an upgrade that you want to make to your car, that what cars you could get it from legally and how much it's going to cost you.
Guess next is dry brake fueling, and my petition I finally got through after 2 years.
It's got to happen sometime.
Well, exactly. Sooner or later, a squirrel finds a nut. Pretty simple, guys. We want to encourage us to be as safe as possible on pit road. Previously there was some concern about the perception of the cost allowing dry brake systems in. When we say a dry brake system, we mean basically a dry brake nozzle and dry brake nozzle only. We're not talking about fuel rigs. We're not talking about any significant changes. We're still talking about Hunsacker and VP fuel jugs, just with a new nozzle on it. That will hopefully eliminate some of the spillage we're seeing on pit road. This is a trial balloon, if you will. We want to see it. We want to see people give it a shot, but we're going to be watching it very carefully to make sure we're not creating a problem instead of fixing a problem. We're not going to allow pressurized canisters. We're not going to allow anything like that. It's still got to be just your standard 5-gallon jug, just with a dry brake nozzle on it. So we hope to see that in the coming year.
I can't afford it, but anyway. And I voted no.
Somebody can, Jerry. Somebody will show up with it.
Yep. All right. Couple clarifications in there. Officially lists ballast is prohibited. Camera mounts. Right now, there's something that says tethers, but as you know, our ChampCar.Live broadcast is putting camera mounts in there that are super robust. In a car accident, they don't even flinch, but there's no tethers on them, so we're eliminating the phrase tethers to that. And then board discussed a shifters as whether or not to put them as driver comfort. And basically, as long as the shifter maintains the stock design operation, H pattern shifter as an H pattern, we're not talking sequential or any of those kind of shifters, then short throw shifters would be allowed as a driver comfort item. All right. Other thing, what's that?
Braided lines again. Did that one get repeated?
It looks like it did.
Okay.
I mean, with the 113 lines in there, not surprising. So.
Yeah, so we already covered that one.
Chris typically submits his questions 3 or 4 times to make sure we don't miss them.
He knows this.
We saw them all. All right. So something that's been on the table, on and off, not really off. It's been on the table pretty much every year for a while, and the board had a lot of discussing this year, especially while we were all stuck at home. We got to talk about it a bit. It was someone or multiple people have suggested for a while, changing the structure of our current classes from displacement based to something else. So Tyler was involved in that conversation a lot, and I think he's ready to talk a bit about that and where we're going to go with that at this point.
Yeah, so Troy last year I think put in a petition for a points-based classing system versus an engine displacement system. Majority board stated that we believe that the points-based is way better. It makes more sense than just an engine displacement. So we are going to move into 2021 on a points-based classing system versus an engine displacement system. What those points are right now, we still don't know. And it might be a moving target for the next 2 to 3 years to get it right. But we have been seeing more and more people excited about class racing versus overall racing. So we want to make sure we are providing the best points-based class racing we can to those people who want to do that. So that's kind of what we're looking at. We'll put something together this year, see how it works for 2021. If we need to tweak it a little bit, we'll tweak it for 2022. And maybe even to 2023, we might not get it right, but we're trying. We're listening to people who want to make changes, and that's what we're looking at doing for 2021. So
We wanted the points to be competing against each other. So if you only have a 300-point car, that you're competing against other similar cars at similar points, so you could just kind of start racing wherever you started. That makes sense.
Are we actually doing that for 2021, or are we just exploring it for 2021? Tyler, I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, we all agreed that Troy's position was great and that we needed to make a change for 2021. So we believe we just needed data and items on that to make it. So in my opinion, we should move to 2021 to do that, just depending on what we formalize and agree on here. So.
Yeah, we haven't decided how many classes and what the point spread would be per class yet. So I guess we welcome your feedback on that.
I think what we...
And we lost Doc. This is like the broadcast.
Heard a ghost of the doc.
It's dementia.
Bill, do you have questions from anybody that?
Yes, I do. All right. So Ron says, Ron from Vissel Racing says, great job with the PPE loan, guys. And thank you for that. Multi-car crazy, which I believe is Ed, Infinity Ed, says 5 qualifying races is too high even in a good year, is what he says. So he'd
Well,
like
to that point, if Bill thinks it's Ed, the 24-hour race counted as 2, and then like the weekend like Gingerman is 2. So say those 2 weekends, you made 2 trips, you got 4 races already. So it's not that difficult to get to them. But as I said, for this year, because of cancellations and travel restrictions, we're definitely going to make some exceptions for those that contact us.
And to add to that, because I remember I felt very strongly about this, I want our national champion to be somebody that's at the track. I don't want to see our national champion once or twice a year. I want to see him 5 to 10 times a year. That's important to me as part of the series, that my champion is racing.
Yep, I remember we discussed that.
Okay, Conti Motorsports asks, why no more races in California this year? Mike, do you want to explain that one again?
Yes. So Jerry briefly touched on this earlier when we were covering financials, but basically every California race we run, or I say West Coast race, because that includes Utah, and this goes back for the last 2 to 3 years, we run at a loss. Those of you pretty good with math on your fingers can see the number of cars and understand that those tracks cost just about as much as the ones that we run any other part of the country. So we're running those events losing money, and it may be a little bit, it may be quite a bit, but it was covered by the successes of the races back on the East Coast. And as you can see from the financials last few years, we still posted a profit as a club, positive, cash into the year. So it wasn't a big deal. And as a club, we're not supposed to be pursuing pure profit. We are supposed to be spreading the chance to race as an amateur, not a professional pro driver, to all sorts of people coast to coast, given an opportunity to come race. And if that means that in some races we're going to loss, so be it. But this year, with the shutdown and so many people can't get out of their state, they can't get to the tracks. Some members of the team may be sick, or they're just they're nervous about going out. We've had a significant reduction in the incoming revenue, and we don't have the luxury to operate races anywhere at a loss. So we had to cancel the races that are always a loser for us every year, and we've had to renegotiate with a couple of tracks that we were going to cancel, and they ended up reducing the track rental fee and got it to a point where we can at least run the track to race at a break-even number. So that's why we canceled California, but we're already in contact with California tracks for next year and trying to set those dates back up.
Yeah, it's a COVID thing, not a regular thing.
Right. Bill Inwit asked about Petition 15. Board voted no. As written, rule only states the rear window, not rear side windows like on a Civic, Focus, etc. hatchback. Will the board update to include those side windows as well for Petition 15?
Use of safety film on stock glass at all times in lieu of replacement. So all we have in front of us is this cliff notes of it. I don't have the entire petition as written. Do you, Tiffany?
I do. The entire petition as written is the issue is section 9.1 can be difficult to interpret. I believe the intent is to allow properly taped rear glass at all times and not as a one event waiver. The current rule, the revised rule was written, let's see, as follows: 9.1.1, all window and or sunroof glass except front OE safety glass windshields must be removed from all competition vehicles participating in any Champ Car event prior to the car being allowed on the racetrack. I think what we said was we were going to allow all the glasses taped. It was going to be more than just a one event waiver, right? Like if they wanted to do that more than one event, it was fine.
I thought we were going to allow glass to be permanent if it was taped.
Yes, I have this that we wrote yes down, and it was what? Yeah.
I happen to have one of our tech guys here with us, and he says he's fine with it if any glass has the safety film on it, and they're good at checking for it. they'll pass it. So if we understand the way that the rule that the petition was written and understand our memories from back in May,
Or before May.
yes. As long as it has that proper safety film on it, then it has the integrity, almost the integrity of a windshield, which is laminated anyway. So that's why Tech is okay with it. The intent is just not to have glass shatters all over the track, and then we got extensive cleanup. So
Yes, I think
we had that
we were
issue.
looking. Sorry, we were looking at just taking the one event waiver part of the rule out.
okay.
Right.
Yeah, we had some cars that were spec cars that race in other series where they had to keep the glass in, and there
Right.
were issues with that. So
we're going to take the one event
all right.
waiver.
So, and we'll update the BCCR with that as well. We'll make we'll get with Chris and get the wording on that right. So anybody running brake shock struts legally under the 2x rule are now going to take points for them since they'll be on the FV list.
I'll take that, Bill. So here's essentially what we have approved. Just everyone can't wait till September 1st. So, so essentially what we have approved with tax help. So wheels are going to be open, non-adjustable shocks open, one-time adjustable shocks, no remote reservoir, 10 points per shock, includes adding the Schrader valve, 2 times adjustable remote reservoir shocks, 25 points per shock. Steel rotors open, rotors with aluminum hats are 0 points. Carbon rotors not allowed. Non-OEM calipers up to 4 pistons are open, include brackets and hardware. Non-OEM calipers over 4 pistons are 5 points per caliber, includes brackets and hardware. That is what we had agreed with as a board. There was only one change we made from the TAC. The TAC asked that rotors aluminum has to be 5 points. We agreed as a board that the majority held that 0 points was sufficient. So those are the items. That's how the 2 times rule is going to come out into the fixed points list. And we want to keep listing stuff in the fixed points. So there's not really much gray area. I mean, there's not much gray area. So we're taking these results from the tech desk. We're trying to build out the fixed points list. So there's less tech desk items and people can build to the rules at that point. So.
Okay. Let's see. There's a lot of questions here. 0 points. I just got to get through the ones that are actual questions and not yays. And it looks like Tyler took care of a couple of them on there. Norman said they hope to get their money back for that sequential shifter they just ordered off eBay. That was a joke. Can you elaborate?
As well, too, Bill.
Can you elaborate on the 2x? Can you share the points cost for ABS upgrades?
So I was involved with TAC and everyone with this one. So essentially you can upgrade for 25 points or add on for 25 points from any car from the VPI list. That is what we're going with. We're not allowing any aftermarket ABS systems in this series. So we just want to use the VPI, the cars off the VPI to be able to upgrade your ABS or add on ABS. We feel that the aftermarket ABS systems.
Snorman says he gets the feeling. Well, I think my internet's just going in and out here. You guys still there?
Yep. Hi, Bill.
Yep.
Okay. Hold on.
We just feel aftermarket ABS systems are pretty robust and could add to more speed creep. So.
Bring the broadcast, folks.
Hey, hello.
Go ahead, Bill. We got you.
All right. We had one more question here. Is Road America, or is the national why not switch back to the 2019 rule set for the championship?
Well, that's always the case. So the 2020 championship would have been run under 2019 rules, and the 2021 championship would be run under 2020 rules. It wouldn't be an issue if we ran the championship race at the end of the same year, but because it rolls into the next season, there is that number break. But that's why we dictate that when you run next year Road America, you're not teched under 2021 rules. You can run under the 2020 rules for that one event. That's how you won those races or qualify for those races. That's how you should also compete in the championship.
And is the national champion still at Road America in the spring?
It is planned, yes. As we're doing our scheduling for next year, at this point, by the way, we are about 2/3, 3/4 of the way confirmed on those dates. We're wrapping up some later end of 2021 dates as we get into the next month. But we've got our date requested with Road America, and barring anybody from NASCAR and IMSA wanting to take our date in October or April, then we'll be on schedule to have our national championship next April at Road America.
All right. So Alex says, sorry, not the rule set for qualifying, but the qualifying for the, run the points-based championship like we did last year instead of the way it was changed.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
He's talking about the fact that for 2020 we changed the qualifying rules for the championship.
Right.
That was based on a petition from last year, and the board addressed it and talked about it and agreed to make the adjustment. So there's always going to be a petition that says they want to change from A to B, and then there's the people are going to say, well, I want a petition change from B to A. So we're going to run the full season under the new one and see how it comes out at Road America next year. And if we don't think it works well, then we'll revisit it. But you got to give something a shot before you change it.
Okay. That looks like all the questions we have. And thank you guys for asking those. Last call.
The only thing I want to bring back up again, sorry, is the classing. We actually, in the petition list, it says that we decided not to change the classing, but apparently that's not true, right? So
We're gonna
blue.
Well, let's just say that there's a lot of work to be done. And so I would not have any of us sit here on this meeting and make a promise that starting January 1st is something new. Maybe a miracle happens, and it could, but I think there's a lot of research and discussion to get forward, move forward with that proposal. So it's something we will be working on, and it's something that will be coming up again to the membership. So check back in soon, right?
Bill could read Jimmy's statement.
Does Ray Frank have any questions?
Yes. Yeah, ask Bill to read the statement that I just sent in from Jimmy.
Bill, Jimmy asked a question. Ray thinks you should read it.
Not a question. It's a statement.
Okay. Jimmy Letchworth, don't know who he is, but asks, the class system we have now is easily understood. Many have built their cars to it. Changing them will make many cars ineligible because of how many cars start with, say, 300 points VPI. Or 500 or 75 as in the Opel GT. So I'd be the only one in A class, right?
Well, no,
Bill, you know what your deal is.
Well,
okay? We've made the deal, Bill. You have to go with that deal or nothing.
All right, Rick.
Well, first, you got to understand we're going to look at the point spreads, and we're going to try and equalize them some. Your D class, which is our highest displacement, may be only a 10-point spread. It may be 495 to 505 or something like that. And then your C class could be a 20-point spread. B class could be a 150-point spread. We're going to try and break it up so that we have a fair amount of cars in each class. And yeah, we expect our A class would be low point cars, probably our new people who are just entering this where who haven't built their cars to the means or the Bill Strongs and their Opals. But yeah, we have built an entire system based off of VPI where 500 points is supposed to be an equal number across the board and an equal speed for everybody given the same opportunities. To have our classes based off displacement is ignoring that whole concept. So we're going to try and build this classing using the point system we've already got in place. So yeah, we expect the A class cars to actually be competitive with each other speed wise, whereas right now you can have a 300 point A class car and a 500 point A class car, and that 500 point car should kill it every race because that's how we have balanced our series.
All right, and a
A lot of work.
500-point car is anything over 500 points, just like it is now, is going to be ineligible, or laps. It'd be the same
It'll
thing.
it'll have laps, but it could still be in our top class. So it may
Right.
maybe it goes from 495 to 600, but it will still have laps.
Right.
I probably take 4 cars that are under 430 points.
Mine's one of them, Ray.
I've got one too. I've got a 375-point car.
So
You guys
my
are
car started-
blockers.
we have another question from some guy named Dana Morrison. He says, so what happens when a 490-point Miata is running against a 491-point Mustang?
They're running for the same class.
They're running for the same. Yeah, I mean, they're similar points. They should be similar in speed based off of the system we have built. If we're doing our jobs.
I know the proper answer to that question. It's that Dana's going to make you walk and get your dinner next race.
All right, last call, folks. Any questions?
If anybody has other
Rob
questions,
Greenwood,
and I'm sure they'll come up. Obviously, you can email board@champcar.org or info@champcar.org. You obviously can call. Any of us be happy to go over some of our thought process on these things. Anything concerns you, want to hear about it. But as we started off with, there really is minimal changes for next year, and that new 2021 BCR will be rolling out hopefully here September 1st. It's not many days away, so I guess Bill and I have a lot of work to do. So. Guys, thank you. Those of you who tuned in, asking questions, participating. Pleasure seeing you guys at the track, and get that car ready, and please sign up. We need you.